Hello, and welcome back to the Void Century podcast. Ed and Adam here today to bring you chapter 986 of One Piece entitled My Name.
Hey guys, just a quick note for you all. I am going through a move across the country and just some personal issues came up, so I'm gonna need to take a break from this podcast for a few weeks. I'll definitely be back, but Adam is gonna hold the fort down and keep podcasting every week or every other week as we've been doing, and maybe we'll have some special guests, who knows? So, yeah, I just wanted to let you all know that I will be gone for a little bit, but not too long.
So, as the chapter begins, we actually get a cover story with Lola, Chiffon, and Pound again. However, it seems that Oda resurrected Pound just to completely kill him again, as we see Lola, Chiffon, and Beige sail away and cry that they have no idea who this weird guy with the big head is. And Pound's like, "What? I just saw you again." And he's just, poor guy. All right, Ed, do you want to start the chapter?
Yeah, so we start off in the back entrance of Onigashima, and it's all of the scabbards together reunited, and it looks like the scabbards were able to defeat Kanjuro's forces before Denjiro and Kinemon arrive, and they're all kind of standing in lines, and kind of saluting, but also crying a bit. Kinemon and Denjiro are just kind of walking through the ranks, and we see a panel of Kanjuro's corpse with a bunch of blood around it. And we have a really heartfelt flashback of the scabbards having great times and their hijinks and just kind of remembering the good times with Odin and Kanjuro. The scabbards are all really like cut up about having to kill Kanjuro. A lot of them are crying. We see Raizo and Okiku visibly crying. We hear a voice coming from Izo saying, "I know it's been hard for you all." And both Kinemon and Denjiro are just shocked to see Izo. Kinemon asks Izo, "So is this where you chose to make your last stand?" And Izo replies, "I've missed too many chances for a glorious and meaningful death." And Kinemon's like, "Very well, let's hurry." And we kind of see them leave just a body of corpses across the snowy ground, and very, very chilling. Next, we see Kaido on the platform, and he's asking once again for the samurai and the ninja of Orochi if they're going to want to die here with Orochi, or do they want to join Kaido and conquer the world with him? He says that he's familiar with the loyalty of the samurai, and if the samurai choose to fight the beast pirates and die, like he'll commend them for it. He'll respect that because he finds that very honorable. But both Fukurokuju, the captain of the Oniwabanshu, and Hotei, the Mimiwari Gumi captain, so the samurai and the ninja clans, offer 5,000 men each to the Beast Pirate and Kaido's allegiance. We see panels where of both the ninjas and the samurai kind of sighing in relief that they're not going to have to fight Kaido's men because, I mean, it would be a death sentence for sure. And the Beast Pirates even remark, "We didn't want to have to fight you guys anyway." Hyogoro is really upset by how quickly the samurai and ninja, well, mostly the samurai, flip-flopped. Next, we see Mama, Big Mom, and she's telling her homies to keep Nami and Carrot restrained. Nami's just thinking as long as Shinobu escapes, she can help save Momonosuke. So they look like they're in trouble, but they are also hopeful. We then see Shinobu, and she states that Odin wasn't worried about Orochi, but Kaido. So she always knew, like they always knew that Kaido was a greater threat than Orochi. She's still kind of taking in the shock of Orochi dying. So now Kaido is talking to Momo. He says that Wano now has no shogun or samurai to serve him, and the fools in the flower capital are carrying on with their festival, not knowing that tonight's going to be their final night of freedom. He then tells Momo that he's always had a doubt in his mind with Momo just because how could such a coward like him be the son of Kozuki Oden? And this execution is meant to be a symbolism of the end of the old Wano. But he's thinking back to 20 years ago, and we kind of have a flashback, and he states that Momo never answered his question, "What is your name?" So he gives Momo a chance to tell everyone what his name is. And he says, "If you are not the son of Kozuki Oden and Toki, I'll call off this execution and offer a full apology for the confusion." So he's giving Momo an out. And he asks Momo one more time, "Boy, what is your name?" And the Beast Pirates are all cheering him and saying, "Master Kaido, you're so kind. Come on, little kid, just lie and just say whatever your name is something else. Come up with a funny name."
So we see Luffy and Yamato fighting towards the execution platform. Yamato's a little shocked and she's like, oh, is that kid really Momo? And Luffy's like, yeah. And all the scabbards are alive too. Everybody's freaking out. And Yamato's like, hey, you said you'd go ahead and take these cuffs off me. Take the cuffs off. So we see Luffy stops, grabs Yamato's cuffs, does Ryo-O, and takes the cuffs off, throws them. And Yamato is just so relieved that her cuffs are off. In the meantime, we see Who's Who and Ulti. They're like, oh, that's Straw Hat Luffy, and Ulti towards the stage. We gotta go get him. And then we get a shot of Chopper and Usopp in the Brachio tank that's been transformed, running towards the execution platform to save Momo. We see that Usopp's screaming and Chopper's crying, and all of a sudden they come upon a giant, I guess. Chopper asks Usopp if there's a giant, and then they're like, oh, well, we're just gonna trust in Frankie's engineering, gotta go. We see some beast pirates are like, oh my gosh, intruders, we gotta report. And we see Kawamatsu and the rest of the scabbards start cutting them down. We see Law, Kid, and Zoro, respectively, with their own line of people dead in the background. Actually, Law's is the most hilarious because we see Beppo in the background just going ham. We see Momo up on the execution platform. He's thinking about his mom, and we get a flashback to the Toki scene where she's like, Momo, one day you're going to be the man to carry this country on your back. And then Momo thinks of Luffy, saying one day he's going to be king of the pirates. He also sees his dad, and the memory of his father explains that Momo's name means second to none. In that moment, Momo decries his name as Kozuki Momonosuke, once again, the man who will be Shogun of Wano. The Beast Pirates are like, what? Kaido he's going full rage mode right now, and the rest of the Beast Pirates watching from the banquet hall are just laughing their asses off. Momo's like, Mom, Dad, I wanted to be a man worthy of like looking you in the eye in the afterlife. Momo sits there and is like, Yuri, I just want to see you again, I don't want to die. And he's like, I can't cry, warriors don't cry. And then a moment we see a gigantic explosion behind the execution platform, and we see Yamato's screaming and crying. Crying that, oh my god, I can't believe that my own father would try to kill me. And Yamato's like, I no longer even think of you as a possibility for being my father anymore. And we see that Luffy gave him a nickname, Yamao. So in that moment, everybody's looking around and they're like, what happened? Did something explode? And Luffy's like, oh, we're not the ones who are going to start this battle. We're not going to strike first. And in that moment, we see the scabbards make it on the scene, trying to attack Kaido from behind. King, Queen, and Jack are all absolutely shook. Izo shoots King's sword out of his hand. We get a nice little spread of Raizo, Kawamatsu, Kiko, and Inu just going ham. We see Neko, who disarms Kaido, and all of a sudden Kinemon and Denjiro spring on the scene and attempt to attack Kaido. And he's like, oh my god, Kyoshiro, is that you? And the narrator's in, surrender your name, be as a child, put all you that you have into this attack. We see Denjiro and Kinemon are just completely filled with rage. Denjiro actually looks like a monster. Kaido's like, you can't touch me, your swords are useless against me. And in that moment, Kaido gets like a flashback to Oden attacking him. He actually calls out to Oden as he's being attacked. We see that the Beast Pirates are like, hey guys, stop drinking, grab your weapons. And we get an absolutely amazing panel of all the scabbards attacking Kaido. We see that Kinemon and Denjiro have actually pierced Kaido. Nekomamushi is attempting to claw at Kaido, but unfortunately Kaido's just grabbing his skull. And Kawamatsu is apparently strong enough to block attacks from Queen. They decry Snatch, and the raid has begun as Kaido is getting attacked by all 9 of them and falling outside of the castle right now. And we have a chapter next week. This has been an amazing chapter, and that spread at the end is just beautiful. Ed, what do you think?
Epic chapter. So many emotions, honestly, especially for the scabbards this chapter. They go and they have to slay someone that they considered a comrade in Kanjuro. Not sure about whether or not Kanjuro's actually dead, but we'll get into that later on. But in their minds, they had to kill their own friend that they drank with and had ups and downs with and lived with for so long. And it's really a tragedy for them. And just how emotional both Kinemon and Denjiro are when they're attacking Kaido gives me chills, honestly. Like, this is the man who kind of ruined their lives. This is the man who killed the man that they loved in Kozuki Oden and their leader. So in their mind, he is the reason why they're struggling so much, and he's done so much harm for their great country that they're patriots of, you know?
Yeah, I think it's crazy. Denjiro actually looks like a monster when he's attacking Kaido. I'm happy that they finally get the chance to just all go in and attack Kaido and get one in on him. I don't think Kanjuro and Orochi are dead yet, but it is a super emotional time for the Scabbards as well. That one panel where the Denjiro and Kinemon are walking up to the back of the castle and you see the Scabbards flanking them on both sides. It gave me chills. That was another amazing spread. So do you think Kanjuro is dead?
No, and mainly because I feel like he didn't play too much of a role in the actual battle currently. We know that he can kind of make ink clones, and I think that there might be some clues as to him actually not being himself and it's actually an ink clone. First off, we know that Kanjuro has done ink clones of himself already that look identical to him, that fooled the Scabbards already. So it's not far-fetched to think that Kanjuro made an ink clone of himself. I guess I want to let you go into the clues because you're the one who kind of found some of the other clues.
The one I really noticed that we kind of touched on last week is that Kanjuro was injured in his right hand, which is his drawing hand. However, there's one panel in particular on, I believe it's the second page, where they show the fallen Kanjuro and everybody's crying around him. It almost looks like he has a bandage on his hand. And in that current pose, that's his left hand that has the bandage on it. So it's kind of weird. I don't think he's dead, however, because we just saw him. We're like, oh, he's got great drawing ability. He beat Momo up and now he's dead. I believe he has much more of a role to play in the story. And also, like we theorized before, I believe that the Kurozumis and the Kozukis need to get along and they kind of need to make amends in order for Wano to function. And we see now with the new Onigashima project, Wano will cease to exist as it currently is and as it always was, unless something's done about Kaido.
Yeah, it would really be nice to have the Korozumi and Kozuki clans ally by the end of the Wano arc instead of just one destroying the other. I mean, honestly, this whole issue of Odin and Orochi having beef with each other stems from them trying to kill off each other's family lines. So it seems like Oda's trying to portray that killing off your enemy isn't the best solution and it can cause more strife, and allying with them and finding a way to make peace with them is the better solution. So I think that kind of follows in that sort of mentality that Oda has, not Odin, Oda. So yeah, I think that it makes sense for Kanjuro to be alive. Also, I kind of just wanted to point out that there's just some inconsistencies in the panels of Kanjuro, because we do see kind of like a wrap around his left hand in that second page panel you were talking about when he's laying quote unquote dead on the floor. But we do notice that on his right hand in the chapter before, he had like a tiny little bandage that wasn't wrapped around. And on top of that, we see him fighting with Kiku in the last chapter, and his left hand has no bandage wrapping around it. So there's just some inconsistencies that it could be just, sometimes you miss things and you draw it inaccurately. That is not at all uncommon in manga to happen. But it also could be intentional and clues that Kanjuro is actually not dead and he just fought with an ink clone.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I don't think Orochi's dead either. We know that they both have very interesting devil fruits and they both pretty much got off-screened, even though that they were being hyped up for, I don't know, 50 chapters now.
Yeah, it's just so anticlimactic the way that they have quote unquote died that it's not likely that either of them are dead currently. I think that Orochi will eventually die in this Wano arc, but Kanjuro I feel like could be redeemed.
I agree. I feel Orochi is irredeemable, and I totally agree that I don't think they're dead. So I think it's pretty much confirmed that Yamato wasn't wearing sea stone cuffs this chapter. We saw Luffy remove them with Ryo-Oh, and Luffy has to touch the cuffs. And we see that Luffy wasn't debuffed or weakened or anything. So I guess it's pretty safe to say that they were explosive only.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I also really like that panel because you just see Luffy have intense focus, take a deep breath. That's not normal qualities of Luffy. Luffy normally kind of goes head in first without thinking about things. And in this case, he is super concentrated and focused. And I really like seeing that side of Luffy. And he immediately threw it as soon as he removed it. And if he didn't, Yamato could be dead, and Luffy and other people could have been way more injured, anyone close by. So, yeah, it was a really cool scene.
It's very Rayleigh-esque.
True, true.
So, Ed, what are your theories on Snatch? This we've seen it in the story before, but you went ahead and did a little bit of research on it. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about it?
Oh yeah, so I'm gonna just pronounce it Sunacchi. I'm not sure the exact way to pronounce it, but I'm gonna say Sunacchi. And this is what they exclaimed, what the Nine Red Scabbards exclaims while attacking Kaido in the last panel of this chapter. And I just went onto the One Piece Wikipedia and looked into like kind of like what goes on, like everything that like the history of Sunacchi, the phrase Sunacchi in One Piece. So first off, it's a abbreviation for a phrase that translates to throw away your name and wit. And in the past, we see Ashura Doji and his comrades when they were children, so about 50 years before the present day, they used to use the cry of Sunacchi as a form of encouragement to partake in a test of courage. And for them, it was diving into the ocean, like off of a cliff. And the cry is supposed to encourage them to stop thinking and worrying about the danger that they might be in and just take action. Just don't focus on your worries and just do it. It, I guess, is considered to be, or it might be considered to be kind of like in poor taste language for that's used by commoners, because Kikunojo told Momonosuke that it was just improper for him as the daimyo's son and heir to the shogunate to use that term. And so there's some more history, because we know that Zoro heard this phrase before too. And apparently the cry was carried over to East Blue by Shimotsuki Kozaburo and his comrades when they founded Shimotsuki Village 55 years ago. So Zoro actually heard Kozaburo use it while training around a decade ago when he was in Shimotsuki Village. He never used the phrase himself, but he told Momonosuke about it and to use it to energize himself in sword training, and it would strengthen his heart when his courage falters. So yeah, I mean, it seems like Zoro kind of already understands what it means, despite not actually using it himself and only really hearing it offhandedly. So that's kind of cool.
I think it's one of those things that you use when you're prepared to die, because it's supposed to be something that strengthens your resolve and makes you do things that your head and your logic is telling you is extremely dangerous. I think it ties into the themes of Wano well, especially with a character like Momonosuke, who's so concerned with like the history of his country and the history of his own name and what that bestows upon him and his father's name and his clan's name. I think that once Momo is completely resolved and becomes the man that we speculate him to be in order to lead Wano, in essence, he's going to have to be able to be ready to throw away his name and his legacy and just be Momonosuke, second to none.
Absolutely. And it kind of also ties in with the will of the D too. I mean, not necessarily the will of the D, but just the will of yourself almost. Just kind of live in the moment. Don't worry about your fears. And be proud of the action you're taking. Know that it's right. And yeah, it's just kind of words of encouragement. And I feel like people like Goldie Roger might yell at Sunacchi like right before he got executed. I mean, he didn't obviously, but like it would be in his character to say something like that if he had known what it meant, you know. Okay, so we know apparently Oda's editor of 2 years says that there's a dramatic event that happens next chapter, and he cried from emotional, like just turmoil, like he was just so sad about what happened, or just very emotional about what happened. So what do you think that might mean?
I think it means that this is finally going to be the end of Act 3, because, again, I know we talk about kabuki structure a lot, but at the end of the third act is supposed to be an extremely tragic event, and physically at the end of this chapter, they decried that the raid has started. So I think that there's death flags for probably Denjiro and Kinemon. I mean, especially Denjiro, looking like a monster in that last panel. I don't see that even after revenge is accomplished, how he would just transition back into a normal life. He's literally devoted his entire life to hatred and rage against Orochi and the people who robbed him and the country of their dear beloved Kozuki Oden. And Kinemon as well. We know that Kinemon's a father figure to Momo, so I think it's possible that he might sacrifice himself to free Momo from his binds. And we know that Kinemon never had a son, and even when we first met him, he was running around telling everybody that Momo was his son. I think even though it was just a disguise and something that they used to stay low, I do believe that Kinemon, being the most trusted advisor of Odin, does look at Momonosuke as his own son.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I just Denjiro's rage. He just can't be the same person. Like, I mean, I just can't. I don't know what will happen. I think that one of the two, if not both, will die next chapter because of Oda's editor saying that they were very emotional about the chapter. So yeah, I think that it's very, very likely one of those two characters will die. I really think someone will die next chapter, and they're the biggest candidates. And yeah, you just made really good points. I don't really have too much to add on to them because you just said it so well.
So, granted, we talked about one person who might save Momo. Who else do we think that will save Momo?
Yeah, so I think that maybe Shinobu might save Momo because Nami is kind of thinking like it's okay that me and Carrot got captured, but Shinobu's free and she can help save Momo. And obviously Shinobu is a ninja and she's able to kind of sneak around, so maybe she can sneak around and save Momo. One idea that you, Adam, mentioned was that maybe like she tries to find the keys for Momo's chains to help free him, and someone else is the one who actually frees him. So yeah, like I think that the primary two candidates are Shinobu and Kinemon as the ones who save Momo. But I think that just makes so much sense for Kinemon to be the one who like saves Momo because he is the secondary father figure to Momo, and I mean he was the one in charge of Momo's like safety and well-being, and yeah, so like he has the closest, most largest attachment to Momo out of anyone alive, probably.
I would have to agree with you, and except for maybe Hiyori, but they haven't seen each other in years.
Right.
But I do believe that it's a possibility if Kinemon is the one to free Momo, then he's most likely going to die.
Oh, I don't want to think about it. It's so sad already.
I don't want to think about it either, but like Kinemon's devoted his whole life to Kozuki Odin as well, and Momo's currently in danger. I think it's a distinct possibility. Signs are pointing to a very tragic event happening, so it definitely is a possibility. On a happier note, it seems that Luffy and Yamato are getting a little friendlier. It seems like they're getting closer, and I love it. Luffy even gave Yamato a nickname, Yamao. I think it's cute.
Yeah, and it's really funny because he calls Yamato Yamao, and Yamato's like, it's Yamato. Like, say it right. But Yamato doesn't understand Luffy yet. Like, him creating a nickname for you means that he really likes you and you're kind of a significant person. And also, typically, a nickname from Luffy leads to them joining the crew. So, between Yamato already asking to join his crew and Luffy giving Yamato a nickname, it's looking more and more likely that we're going to get a new crew member in Wano.
We might get two. I'm still Carrot for Straw Hat. I just like the fact that they're getting closer. I think Yamato is a really cool character. I think it would be a really nice addition to the Straw Hats. And I kind of do like Yamato's unbridled rage. It's very Luffy-esque, kind of just like, it's a nice character dynamic between Luffy and Yamato, and I think it would really add to the crew as well.
I also love that Yamato calls Kaido a cow gorilla. like you just look at Kaido and you can kind of see it. Yeah, he's kind of like a massive absolute unit of a being. And cows and gorillas are both pretty much absolute units, you know?
I think it's also one of those things that don't translate perfectly from Japanese to English, so I'd like to imagine the gigantic thing that Yamato was calling Kaido at that time.
I think that in Japanese culture, calling someone a gorilla is also calling someone really dumb and stupid. So yeah, Yamato also disowned his father, saying, I'm no longer your son. And that's kind of a huge thing for Yamato as well. So I kind of feel bad for Yamato this chapter because the entire time just thought that the cuffs on his wrists were just a threat to not leave, but not a serious threat. And now learning that his father would actually have killed him.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, but who knows? For all we know, Yamato could be on Onigashima with his new family right now.
Okay, so moving on, we have some battles coming up. So it's looking like right now we have the 9 red scabbards on the platform, and They are with Kaido as well as the All Stars, and it's looking more and more like the Scabbards are going to be the ones facing the All Stars, at least in the beginning of the battle, which I think is really cool. Queen obviously had like the Enel face, the classic Enel face, and looked the most shocked of the three, but all three of them looked pretty shocked. So I'm thinking that it's going to be Neko and Inu versus Jack because they have the most beef with him, obviously. And it looks like, as of now, Izo is going to be the one to face King because Izo is the one who disarmed King.
Kawamatsu's there too. We see Kawamatsu's blocking King's attack.
Earlier, when you were doing the chapter summary or breakdown, you said that Kawamatsu is blocking Queen's attack, and I just wanted to let the audience know that it was a bit of a misspeak because it's just easy to mix up names. But yeah, Kawamatsu might also be facing King as well. I'm not sure who would face Queen, just because we don't see Queen on the panel, like the final panel. So I'm not exactly sure, but definitely at least Denjiro and Kinemon are going to be the ones fighting Kaido, if not more of them.
The way it stacks up right now is it's looking like 2 scabbards per headliner.
Yeah. And at least 2 against Kaido as well. So I think that makes sense. I mean, there's how many scabbards are there actually? Let's count. So
there's 9 in total.
Like currently with them?
Well, it should be because minus Kanjuro plus Izo, right?
Right. Let's just list them off if you don't mind. So I'm gonna say Kinemon, Denjiro, Neko Mamushi, Inu Arashi, Ashura Doji, Kawamatsu, Izo. What's the ninja guy's name again? Raizo, Okiku. That's 9. Yeah. So that's it. So it's 9 of them. So the 9 red scabbards, full force, basically.
Yeah, definitely. So if there's 2 scabbards per all-star, that leaves 3 scabbards left over to fight Kaido, and I definitely don't think that's enough to take on the big man.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, obviously, Luffy will eventually fight Kaido. But actually, speaking of Luffy, currently it looks like the Flying Six are also coming to the execution platform. We saw Who's Who and Ulti in this chapter heading over that way. So Who's Who is most likely going to be the one to fight Yamato. I think that Luffy and Ulti might get a rematch. I'm not sure exactly. And then I know that Kid Law and Zoro are also there, so I think that as the other Flying Six trickle in, they're gonna be facing with those 3. And yeah, also we already mentioned this before, but also Sanji probably fighting Page One just because we didn't see Page One with Ulti in this chapter, so they're separated. So we might get that rematch, which I think it would be a really cool rematch because obviously Page One wasn't giving it his all during their first fight, and will be a little bit more prepared against Sanji and take him more seriously.
Follow me here. What if Sanji's already raid suit mode in the banquet hall itself? And what if he blocks Ulti? So we could have Sanji versus Ulti and Page One possibly.
Yeah, I don't know about that just because Sanji doesn't fight women and Ulti's a woman, so that's kind of like his weakness.
You're totally right, but he would protect his captain. He wouldn't fight her.
He would defend against her. He wouldn't fight her, I don't think. But Page One, absolutely. And also, we've got to remember that Sanji has the raid suit and he can be invisible. So it is possible he's here just invisible.
It is possible that Brook's here too. I think Brook might be instrumental in getting Nami and Carrot out of their current situation.
Yeah, we know that Brook is with Frankie right now on that motorcycle, and we haven't really seen them this chapter, so we're not exactly sure where they're at. Or maybe the past couple of chapters we haven't seen them, so we're not exactly sure where they're at. Whose group were they with? Were they with Denjiro's group or Kinemon's group? I think Kinemon, right?
I believe so. I don't remember exactly though.
And we also know that Jinbei and Robin are in the audience along kind of like around where Hyogoro is. So yeah, like we know that they're in the audience. I'm not exactly sure what they'll do yet either, but yeah, we kind of know the general whereabouts of all of the Straw Hats. And actually, yeah, speaking of that, we should talk about Luffy and Chopper, or sorry, Usopp and Chopper, because it does look like they might be fighting some numbers in Frankie's tank.
It does, but before that, can we just give ourselves the win that we totally called it, that the Scabbards would jump in the moment that Momo was getting executed?
Yeah, we called that a while back, before we even knew that Momo was going to be planned to get executed. Like, he was just captured at that point by Kanjuro. So, yeah, like, I mean, honestly, that was you that came up with it. And I'm just like, oh, man, that actually makes so much sense with this timeline. So, good job, you.
Thanks, bro. I'm just happy that we got a win. So what was the question?
Oh yeah, so what do you think about the potential fight of Usopp and Chopper against numbers?
Oh, I love it because I also found a panel a while back during Skypiea where Usopp was telling Chopper, he's like, "Oh yeah, I've killed 10 giants." So it could be a nice foreshadowing to Usopp's lies coming true.
Oh, totally. We know that there's probably 10 numbers, right? So that would be really cool if Usopp and Chopper are the ones to take out the 10 numbers and make that prediction or lie, I guess, come true.
I think it's also very fitting that no longer are they really the Wiki trio. Like, even though Chopper and Usopp are like screaming and crying as they're rushing into battle, they're still rushing into battle.
Oh yeah, they're kind of badasses at this point. Like honestly, I'm thinking back to kind of like early One Piece, pre-time skip era East Blue stuff, and both Chopper and Usopp would be pretty powerful in the East Blue at this point. Like the fact that Usopp knows observation hockey is huge. Like he could actually do a lot, and also he's learned a lot of engineering skills from being around Frankie because they kind of are like tech masters together. And then same with Chopper. Like he can transform into his monster point and control it now. And his monster point already in the pre-time skip was formidable and could take out a lot of foes and did a lot of work. So I think that both of them would be like two of the strongest pirates in the East Blue if they were to move back there, you know? So I think that they might be the weakest out of the Straw Hats, but they are not weak by any means in the universe of One Piece.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Now, another thing that we need to consider too is we haven't seen Chopper use a rumble ball in what feels like ages. Do you think now that he knows how to control his devil fruit, he could have another transformation? Also, what if a member of the Beast Pirates gets their hands on a rumble ball?
Yeah, I think that he might have more Rumble Balls that we haven't seen even because I mean we know that he's made new Rumble Balls during the time skip. We don't know if we've seen all of the ones that he made. We don't know if he was working on other ones and he was still training to be able to use different forms as well. And yeah, that's a cool question about what happens if Beast Pirates that are also Zone users gets it. Have we even seen any other Zone user use one of Chopper's Rumble Balls?
No, we never have.
Okay. To me, I feel like Chopper designed them specifically for himself to like so it's meant for his own physiology. And on top of that, like I think that he like the user has to really know their own body and their own devil fruit really well. So basically they're both forms. They're human in Chopper's case, we'll say they're human and reindeer form really well and intimately to be able to control their fruit in such a way to have so many different forms. So it would be really cool to see a different Zone user take a Rumble Ball and try it for themselves. But that being said, I feel like they're meant specifically for Chopper to go into specific transformations depending on which specific Rumble Ball he eats.
I always imagine that I believe the Rumble Ball gives him the ability to transform, but doesn't dictate his transformations.
Okay, yeah. I don't know for sure. I for whatever reason I thought that it was like each Rumble Ball is specific to a different type of transformation. So there's like he has like 5 or 6 different Rumble Ball types, but I could be wrong. That's just kind of headcanon.
All I know is that if he eats 3, he turns Monster Point.
Oh, true, true. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to our next topic, which is this is just kind of like general Japanese culture and mythos and folklore. But Fukurokuju and Hotei are names of 2 of the 7 lucky gods in Japan. And I find that really interesting because these are generally like positive gods that Japanese people have in their folklore, and you know they want to pray to them for different types of luck, basically. And it's interesting because the way that they're depicted in One Piece is they're kind of villains and easily malleable to whoever's in charge, whoever has the power, and really don't have loyalty. So it's just kind of like there's some irony in the names of both Hotei and Fukurokuju. So I guess Adam, what we'll do is I'll go over Hotei and then you can go over Fukurokuju if you're cool with that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so this is directly from Wikipedia, guys. So I'll just kind of read off some information about Hotei. So Hotei is the god of fortune, guardian of children, patron of diviners and barmen, and also the god of popularity. So he's kind kind of like almost Dionysus, because he's like big, fat, smiling bald man with a curly mustache. Like Fat Buddha, sometimes like he looks like Fat Buddha, which everyone has seen a Fat Buddha sculpture before, I think. He appears half naked usually because his clothes are not wide enough to cover his enormous belly. His appearance makes him look quite mischievous as a person, and like he has no fixed place to sleep. And his traits and virtue are contentment, magnanimous, and happiness. So overall, super positive, happy, and really positive attributes for Hotei. Do you want to go over Fukurokuju?
Sure, and then we have Fukurokuju. He used to be depicted as a hermit during the Chinese Song Dynasty. He's the god of wisdom, luck, longevity, wealth, and happiness. He's the only god who is said to have the ability to resurrect the dead, and he normally carries a cane in one hand and the other a scroll with writings about the world. He's usually accompanied by a turtle, a crow, or a deer, usually animals that are indicative of long life. And it's also said that he likes to play chess and is the patron saint of, the patron god of chess players. I think that's pretty interesting. That's just more information about Oda modeling his characters.
So while doing this research, I came up with a cool theory because there was something special about Fukurokuju. He is the only god who is said to have the ability to resurrect the dead, and who is quote unquote dead that he used to serve? Orochi. So what if he actually isn't changing his loyalty? He's just saying that he is to save his people, and he actually is the one who will somehow revive Orochi.
Oh, I totally think that's a good possibility. That's a really cool theory.
Yeah, and another cool thing is that it says that he's usually accompanied by different animals, and he is kind of accompanied by the beast pirates, who are different types of animals. So I'm not sure. He probably doesn't have like headliners in his group of ninjas, but he's often around beast pirates who probably have those different types of animals. So to me, like out of these two seven lucky gods that are Hotei and Fukurokuju. Fukurokuju seems really interesting, more so than Hotei. Hotei honestly doesn't seem at all like his counterpart in Japanese folklore, whereas Fukurokuju, between his like long giant head and his different personalities, I think there's a lot more interesting things for me there.
Oh, I would totally agree with you. So do you think Fukurokuju is gonna Edo Tensei Orochi?
I think that he might just kind of know more of the secrets behind Orochi's devil fruit to be able to resurrect him more than anything. Or maybe like we mentioned before, like we've seen that Orochi has many heads when he's in his zone form, and maybe those heads will have their own personalities, and because we know that the main head of Orochi is cut off, it might be that Fukurokuju kind of awakens the Orochi from the different heads so that they're more cognitive of who Orochi was and kind of Orochi's plans, as opposed to just being mindless beasts.
I would agree with you. I also like to imagine that Fukurokuju is the one that holds the keys to Momo's cuffs. And since I speculated before that Shinobu is going to be the one to find Momo's keys and liberate him, I also speculated that her and Shinobu and Raizo, would fight Fukurokuju.
I would love that fight because he is kind of like the antithesis of the Shinobis, right? Is that what they're called?
Yeah,
Shinobis?
Shinobi.
Sorry, because her name is Shinobu, and I almost like mixed it up. So yeah, they're like he's kind of like the antithesis of what Shinobu and Raizo believe in. So it would be fitting for them to defeat him and kind of take over the ninja clan of Wano.
Yeah, I totally agree. We know that Shinobu used to be a member of the Oniwa Banshu, and we know that Raizo, all he needs to be fulfilled in life is a sexy Kunoichi GF, so I think it's perfect.
Another cool fight that just came to mind is Hyogoro versus Hotei, because we see Hyogoro is visibly and verbally upset at how the samurai flip-flops so quickly from one allegiance to the other, and Hotei is the leader of the samurai, so Hyogoro might take it upon himself to face Hotei, and that might be a cool fight too.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's really cool. Hyogoro, despite being so old, is still extremely technical, as a fighter at least. I can't necessarily comment on his physical strength, but he at least knows Ryo-Oh, and he's a very capable fighter. He was respected by Odin himself, so I would definitely love to see Hyogoro get some action, and I think Hotei seems like a good fit for a fight like that. So I think we're going to end it up here for the day. Thanks again for listening to the Void Century podcast. This has been Ed and Adam. If you want to check us out, you can reach us on Instagram and Twitter at the Void Century PC. You can catch us on YouTube at the Void Century Podcast, on Gmail as the Void Century Podcast at gmail.com. And thanks for sailing with us.
Bye.
See ya.